All right, welcome back to another webinar for HBCU Educate series, sponsored by NASPA Region 3. I am your host, Dr. K, and we're gonna give about 2 or 3 more minutes for individuals to come in and get settled. So please give us about 2 or 3 minutes to allow people to come in and get settled. But once again, this is another webinar, a part of the HBCU Educate webinar series. We'll start momentarily. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll start in about 1 minute. All right, Dr. Bates, if you want to go ahead and begin to share your screen, we'll get started. We know that we'll have attendees coming in as it relates to the live recording of this, but also those that are watching the re-recording of this. We welcome you to another webinar for HBCU's Educate webinar series. And today we're talking about career development for HBCU student affairs professionals. As you all know, October is Careers in Student Affairs Month, so this is a fitting conversation and topic. And we have no other than Dr. Tierney Bates from UNC Chapel Hill providing the wisdom and knowledge that we need to advance in this HBCU space as student affairs professionals. So I'll give it over to him.
Thank you, Dr. K. It is always an honor and a pleasure to be with you today to really celebrate careers in student affairs overall. And this is a special place in my heart, particularly talking about HBCU student affairs professionals, because we carry the water a lot of what we do in the success and the matriculation and retention of our students, particularly in the HBCU space. And so really what I want to talk about throughout this presentation is how to think about your career from a career mapping standpoint overall, and understanding what is your strengths, where are the areas you need to grow, and how do you understand the whole understanding of not only your career development, but also understand how you play a bigger role within the institution as a whole. Now, people have known me to give talks, and there's this thing called side effects. So I've known to give a lot of side effects to my talks in some regard. So today you should be able to learn something and take it and apply it ASAP to your own career development moving forward. So it's important for you to understand that as we go through this. I want to talk about current events, your own personal brand, career mapping as a whole. We don't think about career mapping and what we need in our toolkit, how social media and digital skills, because we're in a digital transformation and in a digital economy now, is important for us to understand how we need to think about networking in this space, specifically since we've been through a pandemic and still going through it. And then things to think about to retool and retrain your thought process on your own career development, personally and professionally overall moving forward. So I know in our current events right now, we're all coming back to campus this fall. We're still dealing with the COVID-19 and its aftermath and after effects and the Delta variant and every other variant that'll be your Greek letter name as well moving forward, right? So it'll probably be Zeta next. Anyways, I just want to let you guys know that we are getting through it. What HBCUs have done a very, very well job, unlike our PWIs, is in the COVID-19 space overall. But education has changed. Why? Because for the last almost 18 to 20 months, we've been in the space of what we call either hybrid or remote working and remote learning. So that will not go away, because the latest article I just read this morning says 50% of all students actually take an online class some point in time in their higher education career. So it's important to understand as HBCU professionals, what does that mean for us, particularly when we talk about access having the ability for them to have the tools and a bandwidth to be able to do that moving forward in some regards, particularly with some of our schools being located in very rural areas and dealing with a lot of first generation Pell Grant oriented students as well. The economy is booming though. So we got to really think about that. Even then, despite a pandemic and the first 6 months, it was like all shaky. The economy right now is really taking off. There are more jobs available, and you know that because probably you're trying to fill positions at your institution, or you know people around who have left the field or going into other opportunities, but there literally are over 10 million jobs vacant in this country in multiple different industries. And you've seen it where people are literally, Burger King is giving a $500 sign-on bonus your first week if you just come to work in some regards. You've seen it where somebody's giving $3,000 for you to come work at a certain organization. And you see what it's like the 1950s and 1960s, where you see a help wanted sign in the actual windows of organizations moving forward. But that's changing because of technology. And technology, I think, is important for us to understand, particularly in the HBCU space, because I've worked it too. And sometimes we're still on that paper route, you know what I'm saying, as I like to say, and that paper route got to go. We're dealing with technological savvy generations, these students who are coming to our campus. And if you're still on the paper route, well, you got issues to deal with there. But that's where you, as a person working in this field, become an asset to the organization and using your skill sets. We also have to think about keeping equity and inclusion in mind, no matter what. We've seen what's going on over the last year. Everybody wants to recruit at an HBCU right now. Organizations you ain't never heard of talking about, I want to go down to North Carolina A&T and recruit. But we got to be cognizant of how and why that is. Because don't knock on my door now when you know you ain't never had people of color in the past, and all of a sudden you want to go ahead and do this great strategic talent acquisition plan. That doesn't mean my students from A&T, North Carolina Central, and other places like that will actually go into a place of harm in some regards, but also a place that's very homogenous. That way, those students won't stick around and won't part. And then we got to think of who is hiring. So if we think in our field, in higher education as a whole, there are a plethora of jobs that are being posted every day. Why? Because people have left the field. People kind of realizing that I'm a single mother or I'm raising kids, and it's trying to balance working in higher education. Yet you got supervisors who don't understand that, won't be flexible, all the other great stuff. And we are high impact, high touch. What does that mean for us, though, for the future of our field and the conversations that need to take place? So let's start off with you first as an individual. What is your personal brand? If I ask Dr. K what she is known for, I'm pretty sure in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, she can tell me what she is known for. What is her niche? I know she's the assessment guru. If I have an assessment issue or concern, I even call her as far as that's concerned. But what is your niche? I have worked with a lot of people, like I said, worked at 2 HBCUs, where people are still trying to find their niche. It's great that you can get students to programs, because a lot of times in student affairs, what we focus on is getting students to programs. But let's go beyond just getting students to programs, because are students truly learning in those programs? Are they truly being engaged? And people sometimes look at our field as the fun and gun field, right? It is, oh, you guys do all the, hibbity hobbity, homecoming, all the other great stuff, right? Let's go deeper. Find your strengths. Find what you're good at. So a prime example is if you haven't taken the Strength Finders test, take one. I know mine are strategic, communication, discipline, and connectedness. So I use my strengths in my job role, but also currently right now, when I think about connectedness and discipline, to career map to where I want to be overall. You have to take that self-inventory of yourself. Why did you come into this field must always be at the top of your mind. And I know this because everybody's jumping ship right now because I got positions to fill because of salaries. I get it. We are not the best paying field in the world. But you have to understand that over time, you will make the money if you're willing to move. I'll say that again. Most people get stagnant and get in a position where stay at an institution longer than they should. And that's a conversation you have to have with yourself. You also got to realize there's only going to be so many rock stars within the organization, or so many band members, as I like to say. So that doesn't mean just because you do a great job, you will be seen as the eye of the VP or of the institution as the go-to person in some regards. It's what I call the rock star-like ability. And I've seen it at multiple institutions I've worked on. Person can't hold water to anything, but just people like that person. So they get all the ability to do the different things or get notified or get seen as the rock star on campus, yet they can't even do the assessment that Dr. K is trying to give them, right, for the CAS standards. So it's important for us to understand that moving forward. You have to understand what are your values around education, health. Why? Because these jobs will wear us out. Where's your loyalty? Is your loyalty to the school or to a leader? My loyalty has always been to a leader, not a school, because schools are just like any other organization. We could be here today and gone tomorrow. We have to have an honesty among ourselves. What do we love moving forward when we take in our values? What are our traits? These are my traits. I'm organized, I'm ambitious, I'm direct and empathetic. I know what I am. You need to take that inventory for yourself. You have passion, right? What is your passion? Mine, I love food, love music, and I love working with Black students. And no matter whether it's at the HBCU space or whether it's at the PWI space, I know that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And so I want to get back in that space in that regard. Goals. We all have goals. I hear a lot of folks that come into our field right now, particularly in student affairs. When I first came in, it was the goal to be the vice president of student affairs. Everybody wants to be the vice president. Now, everyone wants to become a college president. And as someone who's has been through two and now in a third college presidency preparation program, you really have to ask yourself the question, is that what you truly want to do? Because the glitz and glamour looks great. You know what I'm saying? When you post about a president doing this, all that stuff. But there is so much that you do not know what goes on into that role. Even if you sit down and talk to your own college president, there is more to it than you have ever imagined to really be prepared, one, two, willing, and three, having the foresight and the ability to do it. Because you might be a great person who thinks you can do the job, but there's these idiosyncrasies called a board of trustees, alumni, community members, donors, students, and faculty who can really not be that great for you in your journey of trying to get to that role. And then some of you want to build your own businesses. This has been the year of the side hustle, as I like to say, as all my friends have gone out and started side hustle businesses, particularly geared towards higher education or outside higher education in some regards. People selling soaps all the way to hair care products, you name it. I'm all for it. Get your coins, get your dollars. Everybody needs to have a side hustle as far as that's concerned. But what is your brand and what will be your niche and what will you be known for? And that's important for you to understand. So you need to develop your own personal branding and sit down with somebody. Like you have somebody that you know, somebody who's good at personal branding. I have a couple of students and a couple of people who work in the field of branding that I've talked to about how to personally brand and what to do for myself, whether it's my business, whether it's myself individually or my personal goals that I have to do personally and professionally moving forward. Now, here's what I really want student affairs professionals at HBCUs to understand. You need to know the business of higher education. It's one thing to work at Talladega, to work at, you know what I'm saying, Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, but it's another thing to understand the business of higher education. Higher education about 15 years ago became a business. Why? Because if you're sitting up at most institutions right now, you're talking about enrollment management at every school. HBCUs have seen a tick up of individuals wanting to attend. And that's because of what's happened across society as a whole. So that's positive, that is great. But there's a business case for that in some regards. And there's also other things you need to understand. Enrollment management is the backbone and key to an institution's doors staying open. For most of our private HBCUs, you eat what you kill. So the experience that you sell at Wiley College, at Edward Waters, will be the experience students are looking forward to when they see it on your social media, when they get to campus, all the other great stuff. A lot of folks want the smaller school version. Some folks want the North Carolina A&T or the Morgan State or larger schools. But the experience is going to be the key, and you have to understand enrollment management. I don't care if you're in first year studies. I don't care if you're in psychological services. I don't care if you're in residence life and housing. You need to understand enrollment management. You need to understand all the factors of enrollment management. When I say that, it's not just like, oh, we admitted X amount of students and yielded this. As someone who's overseen enrollment management, I tell you, it goes deeper. It goes deeper into the experience, how we back the student financially, will they be able to matriculate on, and will they have a great experience with us overall, and what other opportunities? Can they get into the classes that they want to enroll in as far as that is concerned? Can they pay that bursar bill overall? So it's a different thing around enrollment management that affects all of us. Why? Because if you saw over the last year, people were furloughed, people had to take pay cuts, all the other great stuff. So you need to understand how you play a role as a student affairs professional in helping and articulating what we need to do around retention, matriculation, and helping enrollment management meet its not only its numbers, but retention overall. Why is that important? Because the financial management of most institutions right now is being scrutinized. Why? Institutions across the country have not hit their enrollment management goals overall. So when you don't hit your goals at a private, UNCF school, then you're going to have some issues about making sure that you can fund the institution long-term to do certain things. Whether you're at UNCF or Thurgood Marshall, no matter what, your dollars make sense for you to be able to go out and hire. How many times have you worked somewhere and you said, I wish that I need another staff member, or I need more resources? Where resources are going to be based upon who has the squeakiest wheel in the room, and at the same time, where enrollment management comes from. You need to do a couple different things. One, sit down with somebody in enrollment management and get to become their best friend and learn everything you can. Two, learn somebody from the financial side of the house, whether it's your CFO on campus or your assistant vice president for financial affairs. Get to know the business side of how things happen and operate on your campus. Are you fee-based driven within student affairs? Many of you might not know that. Is it that your president just allocates a certain amount of money towards the Division of Student Affairs? Are you zero spend as far as that is concerned, meaning every dollar you get, by the end of the year, you must spend it or lose it? Is it performance metrics in some regards of how you get funding? So again, you need to understand that. The biggest thing tied to that also is around strategic planning. Where is the institution going? Every time we get a new leader in higher education at a new institution, they want to put their own stamp of approval on what they want to see and do for the institution. So how do you become a part of the strategic planning piece from a student affairs lens? Because student affairs plays a big role in that outside of the classroom around strategic planning. And it's important for us to understand is how do we become a part of that? How do you even create a strategic planning process internally in the Division of Student Affairs with outcomes and metrics to make sure you're helping move the needle that aligns to the mission, vision, and overall strategic plan as well? Then fundraising. All of you great folks that work in student activities miss out on so many opportunities to fundraise. People are clamoring right now. So if you haven't partnered with career services student activities, if you haven't partnered with alumni affairs in some regards, it's a unique opportunity to bring in dollars to help support some of your mission and vision. I've had colleagues say, oh, I only got $30,000 to throw on all these programs this year. Have you talked to career services? Have you talked to alumni affairs to look at new dollar opportunities or grant opportunities, which a lot of organizations, particularly in student affairs, overlook and see? I know this at my time at Virginia Union, I was able to land a $50,000 grant to help support some of our initiatives that also help pay some staff that I couldn't give a pay raise to. So it's important to understand that you have to take advantage of the opportunities that are around you. And that's the type of individuals I look for as a leader, is who's going to be the entrepreneur or innovator that will come to me with ideas versus complaints. And those ideas are great ideas, and some that say, hey, Dr. Bates, I found this great opportunity where I think we can get $40,000 in funding. We just got to do X, Y, and Z. So it's important to understand that. The biggest thorn in your side, though, will be as a student affairs professional, personnel management. Yes, it will be. Why? Because everybody got an ego, everybody got something to say, and it's important to understand what type of leader you want to be around personnel development. I tell everybody I set a standard. I set what we call a community agreement, and I said this is how we will operate as an organization, as an individual. We won't do the backstabbing, we won't do the complaining. Otherwise, I tell people I will help you find your future opportunity. Because it's important to be able to create a culture of belonging, a culture of innovation, a culture where people want to come to work and people want to come to work for you. Think about that. As you rise through the field, are you helping put others on in leadership opportunities? And do people turn around and say, I want to work for you because you're a great leader? And you all have someone that you know you don't want to work for. So think about what you want to be as far as a leader is concerned, dealing with personnel management. And when it comes to personnel management, it's important to have a strong relationship with your human resource office. Why it's important is for the simple fact you will have to deal with some things. We're at Will here in North Carolina, so sometimes it's love you like a baby Jesus and it's time for you to go. In other states, you have to go through a different process when it comes to staffing, but you also have to be good at documenting what is the issues. You can't just document and get rid of somebody because you don't like them. You got to make sure that you're documenting what are the things that you need to learn. So if you can take an HR class, if you can develop something really strong with your HR representative within your organization, you can understand the policies and all of the different things moving forward around personnel. That is a key for you, particularly in the HBCU space, because we have had a lot of turnover in some regards. And it's based upon personality, not based upon work or performance currency, as I like to say. So it's important for us to understand that as leaders, as we develop ourselves moving forward overall. So I would always say, have HR on your speed dial and build a real relationship with them. On the flip side of it all, if we're in student affairs, we have to have great, strong relationship with academic affairs and research. And most of the institutions that are HBCUs don't do a ton of research, especially if you're in a private realm. They're usually master level institutions in some regard. But if you get into the state, Thurgood Marshall schools, all other stuff, some of them do research or niche area in research overall. But that's a unique opportunity to get your students engaged and involved and for you to learn, right? On an academic fair side, I always tell people you should try to teach. If you can teach at your institution, if you have the credentials to do that moving forward, you should meet with the vice provost for faculty affairs. You should meet with the provost from time to time if you're in student affairs to kind of engage in what's going on the academic side of the house, because you want to have that relationship with faculty. And faculty at HBCU care. They're there. They're really involved with students overall. It's a little different from the PWI space, but it's important for us to understand that we need to look hand in step and locked in hands, walking together with our academic affairs side of the house. I would also argue that for many of you who want to stay in student affairs and rise to a vice presidency or to a college president, teaching and publishing will give you the street cred, as I like to say, to be able to do that. So if you're publishing, if you're out here doing research, if you're writing articles, if you're in journals, if you're doing peer review things overall, even in your student affairs opportunity, it's great. Dr. K has great opportunity for all of you, you know what I'm saying, to go out, you know what I'm saying, and get something published in journal. You know, I got to think of something to write for myself. I'm trying to get some street cred. So it's important for us to understand is do that. Take the time to write something. I don't care if you don't have the PhD, you can still be at the master's level doing this. If you determine to go ahead and get your doctorate, whether it's the PhD, EDD, don't matter, just get the damn D. And that's important for us to understand moving forward. We also know that diversity, equity, inclusion is important. So how do you play a role in that? We know we're working at HBCUs. We think we're diverse, but in some regard, we are. We're more diverse than most PWIs, but it's important for us to understand what does that mean for us? How do we use that towards our advantage? Because when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion at a HBCU, we're really talking about our LGBT community. Schools are still not where they need to be around developing support for our LGBT communities in those spaces overall. And I get it, some of them are religious affiliated, but we have to make sure that we know that we're holistically supporting the whole student when they come to our organization as a whole. Another area is assessment and data driven. I tell people I want to be data informed. I don't necessarily have to be data driven, but I want to be data informed. If you're not doing assessment, and don't just do the typical assessment where this is the number of students that showed up, you know what I'm saying? I want to know why students showed up, what they gained from it, how could they apply it into their regular lives? Can I talk to them 6 months later and they can still remember that? I want you to really do a deep dive around assessment and really understand that, especially if you're at a smaller HBCU. I think you have a uniqueness there to really speak to the student experience. Some of our larger HBCUs still, that assessment will drive dollars, as I mentioned earlier, around financial management, around fundraising and stuff. If you can bring to me an opportunity to say, hey, we've assessed our students and this is what we've learned, and we think we have a unique opportunity for some funding, I'm a leader that says, let's try it, let's do it. Let me find you the funding and let me reallocate what I need to do around resources to help you. As a career person, one of the biggest areas right now is around data analytics. So if you're not getting certified in data analytics right now, on a professional development standpoint, you need to do it. There's General Assembly, there's Coursera, there's us here at UNC Chapel Hill. There's multiple different ways that you can get a certification in data analytics. It is driving everything we do. So I tell any young professionals working in student affairs right now, get a certification around assessment and data analytics. It will only help you. It will only set you up for long-term success and have an impact on you. I think it also is important because you can now go out to alumni and your external relations folks and have a conversation around what students need, how you can support students overall, but it also connects you as a person to build your network. Because you know you got alums that come back, you got alums that have gone on and made millions of dollars, influencers, all the other great stuff. So how do you build that rapport with them that you build a true belonging space, not only for your students, but you can career map yourself to say, hey, if I ever want to leave this institution, I've made connections with individuals within, you know what I'm saying, the Ram family at Winston-Salem in some regards, to be able to do X, Y, and Z moving forward. So it's important for us to understand that overall. Facilities. You need to understand facilities around career mapping. And when I say that is because we know we get beat up in the HBCU space around facilities. Yes, we might have built that new residence hall, or we got the new cafeteria, you know what I'm saying, that one new academic building, but a lot of our campuses are from, 1865 themselves, right? And so it's important for us to understand what is that around. The most number one issue at most college campuses is around deferred maintenance. Now, that's a fancy word, deferred maintenance in some regards, but every building is going to need a roof. It's going to have to get HVAC, set up. It's going to need some new carpeting. I remember walking through a building at Virginia Union when the boards was creaking in it and all the other great stuff. You've seen the ghost of Christmas past walking past you. But it's important for us to understand that facilities are important for us to understand as student affairs professionals, because we're in the residence halls. We usually are running either the dining services or the student unions, all the other great stuff. And so you need to become an expert and engaged around facility maintenance, and you can forecast what are the issues, concerns that you'll be able to do to be able to help your leaders determine how that financial management can impact, and also around safety for students. We also know that online space is being bigger and bigger and bigger, as we've seen. So how do you incorporate some things around your programming as student affairs leaders as well in the online space? Wilding out. How can we do wilding out or sipping paint, in the virtual space, all that other great stuff that truly engage students no matter where they are on campus moving forward. But in your capacity, in your competency, you need to learn these areas, because as you learn these areas, you get a higher level view overall of what it is like to work at an institution and not just your niche area of student affairs. Why? Because there's politics. How do things really work in student affairs is what you need to learn when you're career mapping. When you think about what happens, at, Spelman versus Central State Universities versus Kentucky State in some regards around student affairs, it's going to be a couple different things. Based upon the leader, one. Two, based upon the history of the Division of Student Affairs. And three, the perception of student affairs on most college campuses. And it's also important for us to understand on HBCUs that we're very close with our students, but we have to start thinking about the technology and advancement, or what we use around student affairs as well. And how do we take some of our best practices in the field of student affairs to apply to them? What are our own personal strengths and weaknesses? What are our own professional building blocks? We all have them. One of the biggest things I realized in my career, my professional building block was learning around research, economic development, and around faculty. Well, my goal that I set out from a career mapping standpoint is to be more engaged with faculty, get into the classroom and teach, and then start working with my colleagues through partnerships and through sitting on committees around research and economic development, where I can speak to that more often when I rise up somewhere else at another institution overall, to be able to engage in those dialogues, conversations, and impact overall. I think your reputation is important for you to understand in your career. You have to protect it. We've had colleagues that have worked in HBCU spaces, and I know personally, who have to realize they've lost their reputation based upon just one little act that they shouldn't have not done as far as that's concerned. So you have to safeguard your reputation with the best of conduct overall. And you're going to be known for something. You have two types of currencies in this field: performance currency and relationship currency. Your performance currency is going to be based upon how well you perform in your job. But this field is built upon relationships. And it's important for us to understand in student affairs, relationship currency goes a long way. I ended up in the job I am based upon a relationship. The last 3 jobs I had were all built upon relationships. And so it's important for us to understand how relationships play a big factor, but you want to protect your reputation and what you're known for, because it can literally side by your whole career in some regard moving forward. And we've read about people, we've known people, we've engaged and stuff like that. So one thing is, think about that. What would you not want to have on the front page of the local paper or the student newspaper about you in some regards that will elect, in your livelihood, your personal and professional brand moving forward? Can't have one without the other when it comes to integrity and influence. You have to tie those two together. Your integrity, your influence are important for you to have as a professional, as your career mapping overall. And when I say that, that goes along in your decision making. A lot of times we make decisions with not enough ration or not enough thought process. So it's important for us to take a step back sometimes, even when students are in our face complaining and yelling and all that stuff, to really look at the macro level of things and the overall impact. Because I can make a decision one day and it's great for the students today, but it can have a longer term effect on students down the road. So it's important for us to understand that as well. We have to enhance our relationships, our attitudes, and our strategies. Everybody got somebody on campus they don't like. That doesn't mean you don't still build a relation with them. That doesn't mean you don't strategize how to work with them. You're going to work in an environment where not everybody will love you, want to be around you, all the other great stuff, but you have to think about that. What are your habits you need to nurture? Because we all got good habits. And then what are the habits you need to discard as a professional as well in student affairs? And a lot of us also have bad habits that we need to get rid of. Stop gossiping. Stop posting on Blackstop all y'all business. People be screenshotting that stuff. I'm trying to tell y'all. Anyways, priorities and potential pitfalls are important. That's why it's important for you to have a roadmap. If you came into this field, you should have said to yourself, in the next 3 years, I want to do X. In the next 4 years, I want to do this. The next 10 years, I want to be here. Now, you don't have to rush because life throws us curveball, but you should have on paper, and if you haven't written it down, your own career roadmap of where you want to go. A lot of you have mentioned, I want to be a college president. Well, what will it take for you to become a college president is what you need to learn. And so you need to roadmap, put it in writing, and then check off every year action items to get you to where you want to get. You also have to understand that social media and digital is important for us in this space, and you have a circle of influence. Your digital presence is important. If you go to my, digital presence, it's all about the good things that I'm trying to do with students, all that great stuff. And yes, from time to time, I share my personal opinion, but I realize that can also be detrimental to me long term. So it's important to understand what platforms, marketing channels, blogs, and what is your own personal mission statement overall. And this is mine that I use, that I tell my team, that is on my desk, that is on my refrigerator at home, that keeps me grounded in the work I do within student affairs as a overall. That way, with all the noise going on around me, I know that I, integrity-wise, value-wise, stand on principle moving forward. We gotta network different. Why? LinkedIn tripled the amount of accounts over the pandemic. Jobs and people are getting hired off of LinkedIn. I'm gonna say it again. Jobs and people are getting hired off of LinkedIn. If you have not updated your LinkedIn profile, reach out to me. I can give you a great example of what your LinkedIn profile should be like and look like overall. But you need to use LinkedIn as a tool to help you. You can blog on it nowadays. You can publish your own articles, all the other great stuff. LinkedIn is the place where headhunters will go first to look for talent. Whether it's headhunters doing recruitment in the HBCU space or just in general, I know this because I get hit up all the time, and I'm wondering how they're hitting me up, and they eventually tell me I saw you on LinkedIn, because there's an algorithm that talent acquisition and search firms use overall. What is your UVP, your unique value proposition? At your institution right now, why should I keep you? You have to think about that. As we went through all this craziness over the last year, what is your UVP? And your unique value proposition must set you apart from anyone else on your team or within your organization or within the field. And that's what you have to consider, and that's what you have to be able to articulate. This is a question I ask everyone in interviews, because I want to see, one, are they thinking? Two, do they know what their unique value is for them to come work for me as far as that's concerned? And how would they apply it to my organization moving forward? Your research, I mentioned before, use your research if you have an interest to write, to publish, do different things to give you exposure in your career mapping. Publishing is important. You have the journal, and I can't plug Dr. K's journal enough to be able to have that opportunity to do that. You have multiple other student affairs opportunities. You have op-eds. You've got plenty of opportunity. Just make sure you go get a good person who can edit if you're not a great writer, all the other great stuff moving forward. But I think it's important that we have to tell our story in student affairs around publishing for HBCUs. Everything that comes out right now around student affairs comes out from PWIs. Think about that. When's the latest article I read from somebody from A&T or from North Carolina Central or from Talladega or Alcorn State? Y'all tell me. I've not seen us publishing on our own platforms and our own abilities around student affairs in HBCU space. Even with NASAP, there's not much, and there's a unique opportunity within NASAP to create more articles and more opportunities for us to talk about what's going on in our space versus somebody else telling us what's going on in our space. Virtual engagement is here to stay. We need to use it. We need to apply it. We need to be engaged in it. I tell people, use virtual engagement to do informational interviews. You're probably saying, Dr. Bates, what is an informational interview? It's an opportunity for you to say, if I want to be a vice president of student affairs at HBCU, why not reach out to a vice president of student affairs at HBCU and do a virtual engagement interview where you ask them personally and professionally why they're doing what they're doing, how they got there, and what confidence or abilities can they impart in you, and i.e. you have a unique opportunity then to grab someone who can eventually become a mentor. The industries are changing. We know that the industry is changing. It's changing fast. Study change management. If you're not, read articles from the Harvard Business Review on change management, because it's going to happen. What we were doing 12, 18 months ago will be different 12, 18 months even from now. So it's important for us to understand how is the industry changing in the HBCU space for student affairs as we move forward. Ways to retool. You need to pay attention to the digital economy. It's here. So you need to build your own skills around it. Why? You're even using digital spaces, social media, and different things like that. Find out who are influencers within the field of student affairs, not only in the HBCU space, but in student affairs in general. Talent is what we need. So whether you're a PWI or HBCU, we need talent. In the HBCU space, find out who those influencers are overall that are the VPs, AVPs that are making headway within student affairs, and build a relationship with them. View yourself as a brand for people to remember. Think about that. I told you before, I ended up getting my jobs based upon relationships. I left some kind of impression for them to actually reach back out to me to have a conversation to be able to land those opportunities. You need to develop your own project management skills, data and digital visualization skills. That is key. If you can walk in the door right now with me and you can do any of these things, i.e. you at the top of my list, because it's important for me to understand what project management is and how do you apply it around the finances, around people, all the other great stuff moving forward. Learn the whole operation of an institution. If you've ever asked where your salary line comes from, you should ask. If you're at private school, it's gonna come from eating what you kill. But if you're at a state school, sometimes it's a state line. Have you never asked what is our overall operating budget as an institution or as a division of student affairs and how that money is allocated? You're missing out. If you've not went to the academic side and said, how many FTEs are we needed to be able to meet our enrollment management goals? How many faculty are tenure track faculty at our institution overall? You need to learn the operations of your institution. You need to be able to analyze results, optimization, design tactics, and measure. Now, I know you're probably getting over your head for some of you because you're like, well, Dr. Bates, we're talking about student affairs. But student affairs is changing. We have to analyze results, have design tactics, and more to measure for what our students want, need, and for the future. Again, unique opportunities to get on LinkedIn Learning. They're offering all these free opportunities right now to learn and get certification. So get these micro credentials. General Assembly is doing the same overall. Read these two great books right here on managing yourself, because for many of you on this call today, whether you're young or older, you don't really know what your management style is. You kind of just wing it. And if I were to take you through an executive coaching opportunity, you would literally learn what your true leadership style is and how do you apply that to the rest of your team to build the best team and get the most out of your team, by also learning what are your love languages in the workspace. Because many of us don't know what our workplace love language is, because we got 5 generations now in the workspace. And we all know we got, the older person that's in the group and the young person who's running circles around everybody. So how do you work through generational differences as well? Network and think about a career or an executive coach. I have an executive coach. I think everyone should get a career or an executive coach. They're going to help you understand better things for yourself, to think through processes, think through questions. I just think it's very important. And I just got mine over a year ago, and I realized it's been the most amazing experience because she's made me think twice about certain things, and also process of when it is time to go for another opportunity or what to use, and also create that network and that relationship currency. Build a professional online presence and start career mapping today. When you leave this call as an HBCU student affairs professional, you need to sit down and say, where do I want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years? What you really want to do is map into retirement. Because I already said, by the time I'm a certain age, I'm retiring. I don't care what I'm doing. I know I'm retiring at that age. So I got to save my coin. And 2, I know what I'm going to do after I retire, because that is what I want to do now. So I've mapped out to a certain age where I will work up to and then retire. And then I have a plan of what I'll do afterwards in that regard. Because I don't want to go be a full-time speaker. People always tell me, oh, you give great speeches. That is not my, that is not me, my wheelhouse, where I want to do that all the time. That's great for me, and that's my side business, but it's not necessarily where I know that I'm going to be 25, 30 years down the road. So I've already career mapped with the things that I want to do. I love doing what I do today in higher education. I love my side business. And at the same time, I know within 17 to 20 years, I'm going to set foot and say, love y'all like the baby Jesus, and go do something else. Match your skills, add new skills, retool to the changing industry needs, even in HBCU space. Look at Coursera, LinkedIn, General Assembly. These are all unique opportunities. Research, publish, build a niche, get with NASAP. If you have not joined NASAP in the HBCU space, you work in student affairs, I don't know what else to tell you. I think you need to be a part of that, and you need to build out a framework where they can build out some publishing and unique opportunities there. You need to define where your unique value proposition is. And as a matter of fact, you need to steal what I just told you and use it in your next interview, asking people who want to come work for your institution, what is their unique value proposition? It is what we need to change the culture on, being the best and brightest to come work for our students overall. And I think it's important for you guys as you go through this, and I'll get ready to take any questions or anything that we may have in the chat moving forward, that you have to start today, anything. Write it down, put it on paper, map it out, save it, print it off, put it in front of your desk, put it in front of your refrigerator when you brush your teeth in the morning. Whatever you need to be able to do that right now. If you say you want to be a director of student engagement, director of res life, AVP, you have to understand what is the tools I need to have in my competency to be able to get to that role. See, a lot of times in our spaces, people end up in those roles because the likability factor. That doesn't mean they're prepared. And what I hate to see is you not prepared and you walk into a leadership role, because what gets you there won't keep you there. And so it's important to make sure that you have the skills and you're always a constant learner in this field, because we know we've got supervisors and individuals that think they know it all in the field, and these students will run circles around you and the field will eat you up. So it's important to stay abreast of what's always going on and become a pillar of learning in this space and engagement overall, and that you're able to develop your skill sets to go work anywhere. That's the biggest thing that I want to teach you today, is that if you career map and you put all these different things in your toolkit, you can go work anywhere, not just at an HBCU. You can go work for a corporate 500 company, nonprofit. You can do anything, because it's going to be based upon your wonderful skills you develop around project management, you know what I'm saying, around flexibility, around digital transformation and skills. Those are the things that all employers want and need right now. So you have to think of yourself, if I stay in the field of higher education and I'm going to stay here at the great Alabama State University, these are the things we're going to do to make sure my skill sets are transferable, but I'm going to have an impact on Alabama State, and I'm going to have an impact on my students overall, and I'm going to see that greatest day that we all love in May when the students walk across stage is why I'm fulfilled and happy to do the job that I'm able to do all the time.
Awesome. Yes, yes. So I've really had the pleasure of getting to know you over the years, and I'm thankful for that. And so I can speak to some of the things that you said. And for those attendees that are on the call webinar currently, if you have questions, please post those in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get those answered. But one question for you, Dr. Bates, first is, how do you go about finding a career or executive coach? Where should some of these people go looking for that particular individual?
So I have a business where I do career coaching myself. You got to follow my rules, though. It's got to be an agreement. As I tell people, I give you the contract and all the other great stuff. They're out there. You can actually just Google career coaches. What you want is a career coach. You can go two ways. Career coach just in general. I can give you names of individuals and people that you can reach out to. Or do you want a career coach for a niche? I wanted a career coach for a niche for higher education. So my career coach, or my executive coach, has worked in higher ed, knows higher ed like the back of her hand, has published and all this other great stuff. But she's really coached presidents. She's coached presidents and VPs. So that's what I wanted. I wanted somebody who coached presidents and VPs because I want to make sure that I'm doing the right things and looking at the right lenses and opportunities. And she's an older woman. She's been around for years and has experience in that regard overall. And she's actually introduced me to other individuals that are now in my wheelhouse and in my purview that I've been able to build relationships around when it comes time for me to even one day say I want to be a president or all the great stuff. So you got to understand, what do you want the coach for? For entry-level professionals, it could be, I want somebody to get me to the next level. Most of the clients I've dealt with is, I'm trying to get to the next level in some regards. And so you got to understand what you want to do. It's going to cost you. I'm not saying I'm expensive. I'm just going to say it's going to cost you. Not just talk about me, but executive coach, the average hourly rate is about $150 an hour. I don't charge $150. But that's the average national hourly rate. As you get into, like I said, the top ranking individuals is $300-400 an hour in some regard. But you want to have somebody who has experience. I have 20 years plus of experience, right, in the field. Don't go with somebody to be your career coach who's been in the field 5 years and you've been in the field 3 years. Get somebody that has some experience. I've worked at 6 institutions. I worked at PWIs, HBCU. So like you need to go and just Google. You can reach out to me. I can put you with people, the whole 9 as well. But that's the uniqueness. We need more executive coaches in the HBCU space.
Yeah.
The problem is in the HBCU space is that we have people need to stay in that space in some regards. It's got to be more people who look like us. So.
Yeah. And I know for me also as a coach, I don't necessarily do career coaching, more so networking coaching. I always say, working with me is not a cost, not a bill, it's an investment for you. So flip it that way.
Dr. K, you're hitting it on the head because I literally have paid for we're talking about professional development and we're talking about career mapping. If you not sit money aside, and I know you're like, Dr. Bates, I don't make that much. I don't care. Put money aside. If less Starbucks coffee, less drink on the weekend, something. Put that money aside because most of the time I remember working at my 2 HBCUs, there was not a lot of professional development money, right? They go to conferences and everything like that. But don't let nobody stop you from succeeding because they ain't got the money. You invest in yourself. Trust me, it will pay itself back. I literally have paid for something that was thousands of dollars, but it has paid itself back tremendously. So that little, $4,000 or $5,000 that I paid, cool. I don't got 50 back. So it's important for you to understand invest in yourself because ain't nobody ever gonna invest in you but you. You got to start with you first.
Exactly. So we have a question. If you are trying to step outside of a faculty role, is higher education career executive coaching the first step?
Well, my question back to them, why would they want to step outside of a faculty role? Because faculty got it made in higher education, whether you're at HBCU or PWI. Like, if you want to come over with these administrative problems, come on. Because, again, I told you, so I'll give you an example. One of my areas that I had to grow in was working with faculty. Well, I realized institutions, I'll say this, PWI institutions were built around faculty. HBCUs were built around students. Think about what I just said. Because most PWIs are research-based, faculty kind of have the big governance. They have that in the HBCU space, but it's more of a true shared governance and it's more focused on the students. So I asked the question, why would you want to come from faculty to the administration side, or would you want to do both? I teach, so I'm an administrator, but I got an assistant professor, here, where I'm at currently right now. But my focus is on administration. I want to have a dabble in the faculty ranks, be able to speak to faculty, engage with faculty, work with faculty. But if you're a faculty member, I would just ask, why do you want to come to the administrative side? What do you want to gain out of it? Because again, as a coach, these are the questions I would ask you because people want to always come to work in higher ed. I get a lot of people want to come to work in higher ed. I say, why? And again, they see the glitz and glamour and I'm like, you don't understand. You need to understand higher ed, right? First, then you need to understand the institution type you work at. Then you understand the idiosyncrasies and all the other great stuff. So I would say reach out to me. Let's do a little chit chat where I can find out a little bit more of that to help you navigate that. Because if you faculty, you got it made. Especially if you tenure, you got tenure. Well, I'm going home at 3 o'clock. I ain't up with these kids.
This next question is kind of tied to what you just said. It says, so some institutions combine academic affairs and student affairs together in one role. Some have these roles separately, but some have them together. Would you recommend that a person gain experience in both?
So yes. So again, my background, I did student affairs when I first came into the field, and then I did academic. I did academic success, working with academic affairs. So yes, I would say learn both sides of the house. You're right. Most schools that have academic and student affairs together are smaller schools. They don't have the money to have them separate. It's easier to pay one VP and then have an AVP than 2 VPs and multiple AVPs in some regards. So that's why I said you got to learn the business side of higher education, of why they're even together in some regards. If I'm a small school and I got 1,500 students, more than likely, depending upon the structure, I would have my chief academic officer provost be over everything, academic affairs and student affairs, but a direct person working with it would be my AVP for student affairs. And they just report to the provost. So you see models like that. That's why I say study higher ed is study the different models on certain campuses. Some campuses, everybody reports to the provost. Some campuses, everybody reports to the chancellor or the president in some regard. Sometimes they're combined together, academic and student affairs. I think it's all particularly based upon budget, size of the institution, and personnel.
Yeah. And so I know for me, I work in student affairs as administrator, but I also have adjunct positions at other institutions. And going back to something that you said earlier in your presentation about finding your niche, and having a niche has allowed me to be an adjunct. So I do teaching around institutional effectiveness, student affairs assessment, program evaluation, et cetera, which is also based on what I do from 9 to 5, being an assessment professional. So I think that's important to recognize that as you are career mapping, that you really identify what your niche is and how you can utilize that in multiple spaces. Because I've heard recently, if you don't have multiple streams of income, we don't really know what you're doing, especially in a higher ed, sometimes student affairs space. So that was a good point. So my question for you in regards to that, because you talked a little bit about having a side hustle niche, how may one leverage what they're doing on a campus in student affairs as a niche to do it for multiple campuses or outside of their current position?
So I'll give you a prime example of this. I love that you asked me this question. Every HBCU has homecoming, right? You have the Queens and Kings event. Then they have the HBCU Queens and Kings. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they bring all of them together and they do a big pageant and all the other great stuff, right? That's a niche right there. My girl, Tasha Andrews at Tennessee State University, she can get a queen together. So she goes around teaching queens, etiquette, all the other stuff to other institutions, K through 12, the whole nine, as far as that's concerned. So if you're good at something, it's a matter of, one, how do you create a business plan around it? Because people are good at things, that don't mean they know how to do the business side of it, right? So they need to understand what the business side is. If you ain't that person, find somebody who can help you navigate. Here's a great opportunity for you. Go to the business school at your institution and ask the students to do a study. I did that here where I'm at right now. I was like, hey, can you guys do this as a class study? One, you're giving them real practice. Two, they're helping you in your business model and you get creative. And three, they'll give you the real, you know what I'm saying, in some regards in that. And you can also have a faculty member who can help you with that as well. So you can go to your business school faculty and I got an idea, I want to do this. Will your class be willing to take an opportunity to be their project for the semester? And you can work with them. So, if, Tasha does the thing around homecoming kings and queens, if you're a good guru, like event planners is important. Like I laugh, people work in student activities, they're project management people and they're event planners. I would go get a PMP if I'm a director of student activities right now, and you believe student activities is gonna make $100,000 down the street with a project management certification. So why not get that? Event planners, you can start your own event planning business, right? You can go out, do weddings, all kind of other stuff moving forward and all that great stuff. You just have to put the business plan together, what certifications you will need, all the other great stuff. The problem is self-doubt. That's why people don't start their own hustle. You know what I'm saying? I get it. You got bills, you got things to do, you nervous, but guess what? Everything we know of that's been founded, phone, all this other great stuff, somebody was dead on their last dollar and now a multimillionaire. So you ain't got nowhere to go but up. So why not take the chance on yourself? If you're gonna ride on anybody, ride on yourself. Because when your back is in the corner, trust me, you're gonna come out swinging. You hungry, you're gonna come out wanting to get something to eat. So it's important for you to understand that if the skill sets, that's why I said what you learn in higher education can be applied to multiple different other industries and opportunities. You know what I'm saying? You just have to be able to sit down and say, consistently, I'm going to do this. I hear a lot of people want to be speakers. Everybody became a speaker last year. But you got to consistently do it. You got to consistently be in the game, speak for free, do whatever you need to do, and consistently be out there. If you're not doing that, you're just talking.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned some certificates. I know you mentioned the data analytics, but you just mentioned the PMP. But I also want to encourage people, when you're looking at, because there's even, the HR certification that people can get. I can't recall what it is, but it ties into what we do in student affairs in terms of project management and different projects. So adding to your wheelhouse helps you not only just within the higher ed profession, but outside. I don't see, can we see your slide with your contact information again? And
there you go.
Trying to see if we have any other questions.
Well, Dr. K, the certification, everybody should be getting an extra certification nowadays. That's all I can say, especially if you work in an institution that offers it, or you have a community college or something near you where you can get a certification. It's only an investment in yourself. It's only going to make you better long term. I would recommend go do Six Sigma. Mm-hmm. Six Sigma is an easy one. Sometimes these are things that you can just find online and just learn yourself. Like I kind of lightweight taught myself a little bit about Six Sigma. I didn't get the certification, but I taught myself. I understand there's certain frameworks and everything like that. So when I'm in a meeting, I can actually talk about the language and engage in a conversation, even though I'm not certified, right? So it's important to understand how marketable do you want to be in this space and where do you want to be? You got to sit down and say, I want to be the president. I want to be the VP. How are you going to get that? Because a person walks up to me and says they got Six Sigma, a PMP certification. Again, you go to the top of the list for me.
Right. Yeah. So with time coming down, I don't see any questions. Do you have any last minute words of encouragement, wisdom, especially with this being Careers and Student Affairs Month, to our attendees?
So for it being Careers and Student Affairs Month, I would say take your career serious. Develop what you want to develop around yourself. Nobody will invest in you but you first. So don't expect an institution to invest a whole lot of money into your own professional development. You need to invest in yourself. If you're in the HBCU space, I want to thank you for your service, because that's what we're truly, truly doing. We are serving these institutions, our communities, and our students overall. I want you to think about this too. I know that you want to get paid, because I keep hearing it every day when I see you online from people in the field. But here's the thing. Think about the things you learn right now that will pay you later. Think about the skill sets that you can gain now that will pay you later. And I get it, you want the nice fancy Lexus, but think about the Lexus that's gonna come out in 2030 that you might want as well. So it's important for us to understand that invest in yourself. Career map, I told you before, go home today, write it down. Look where you wanna be, reach out to me if you want me to help you kind of understand that overall. Take inventory of where you are, no matter if you're 25, 45, or 60 years old in some regards today, and take inventory of what you wanna be. I'm telling you, you can manifest where you want to be. It is about you having performance and relationship currency, you believing in yourself, because self-doubt is the biggest thing that stops people. It's the biggest cheater in life, self-doubt. Again, it's up to you to determine how you want to be in your space. And the last thing I would say, don't be scared to move your cheese. If you ever read that book, people are scared to leave. I've been growing up in Alabama all my life. But guess what? North Carolina is nice and sunny here too. You can always come back home, as I tell people. I've moved 6 times, as I told people. And I'm probably gonna move 7 or 8. But it's important to understand that each time I've moved up, I've gained more skills, all other great stuff overall. And I'm not scared because I realize where my purpose is. And each campus I've been able to bless and bring some great things to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom. This presentation has been great. I know that the people that are going to look at it on the YouTube are going to enjoy it as well. So hopefully you're gonna probably get a lot of business in terms of executive coaching and career coaching. But thank you again for participating in the HBCU Educate series, webinar series for NASPA Region 3. And once again, happy Careers and Student Affairs Month to everyone who is watching now and those who will be watching later. Thank you.
Thank you.